I'm
You didn't notice
surprised the
that?
set of Happy Days still
Milwaukee's
exists.
finest. You can go
Still exists in
to
the 50s when the show was really filmed.
that diner in Milwaukee is still open.
What?
Oh, it's not a
No,
set. It's an
that's a
actual
set.
diner.
There is a diner like the Cheers. Like the interior of the bar Cheers in the show was a set, but the exterior is a real bar in Boston called Cheers that you can go to.
Yeah,
But it's
I've been there.
different inside.
I've been there too. Food was mid.
I think I got a Sam Adams.
like
and
any
then I was done.
American tourist trap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised they serve anything other than Sam Adams. And if we all had Sam Adams right now, we'd be raising them in the air, saying cheers to JaMarcus Shephard, the new head coach of Oregon State football. That's how you flip it from Happy Days to cheers to the first official day of the JaMarcus Shephard era of Oregon State
Hell yeah.
football.
Go Beavs every day.
This is episode 198 of the Belligerent Beavs podcast.
Shepisode.
I was just going to say, record scratch, correct myself.
JP beat ya.
Shepisode 198. And us three, the Belligerent Beavs, are just chilling to the next episode on this joyous occasion, on maybe the most genuine and sincere, hype-inducing press conference of all introductory press conferences. If we sound a little tired and a little hoarse, it's because we have spent the last 10 hours running through brick walls from all the inspiration oozing out of JaMarcus Shephard. This is a new era. Beaver Nation is a flock guided by a new shepherd named JaMarcus. And if you are saying anything other than let's fucking go after listening to his first address of the State of the Union of Beaver Nation, then I don't know what's wrong with you. I'm Terry Horseman. I'm joined, as I always am, by my best fucking friends celebrating the best fucking university in the world, Paris of the Pac-12, the old Pac-12 and the new, the Paris of the Pacific Northwest, Corvallis, Oregon, Oregon State University, Belligerent Beavs podcast. JaMarcus Shephard era begins now. What up, boys?
Let's go.
Woo!
Hell yeah. Good intro. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Almost
There's
as good
not-
as
I
a
was-
hire.
Yeah.
That is high praise. Thank you,
Whoa.
Benny. I'd say I went into this
Almost
press
took my phone out
conference.
to text during it, though.
Yeah.
Yes,
Would someone
Scott.
just get on their phone for all of this? I don't want to talk shit because I don't want it to get in the way of how happy I am, but I think we'll have to address the texting from the podium that did take place at Valley Football Center earlier today. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I went into this
It's everywhere.
not somewhat skeptical, but just like it's an intro press conference. Every single intro press conference in the history of intro pressers is like, we're going to talk about upside. We're going to talk about like potential, why this is a great place to be and what this means for me. And there was some of that today too, as to be expected, but there was a lot of authenticity, certain things you don't hear at your everyday presser at programs around the country, a lot about community, a lot about why JaMarcus Shephard thinks he can be the man to lead this program back to its winning ways. But what were you guys' sort of like big takeaways? You know, first time we got to hear him address the public. We know he met with the team yesterday, claims to have met with almost every player individually at this point, or close to it, had plans to complete that, if not done already. Our new guy, first impressions.
One thing stood out to me. I shared this with you guys earlier. He declared, "We will win a Pac-12 championship." Unlike other people in the administration who have hesitated to set lofty goals. That was good to hear. I mean, that should be your goal from day one, and to put it out there in the ethos and make it clear that he wants to bring Oregon. He knows where Oregon State should be, and his goal is to bring us back.
Yeah, I found that interesting because, okay, so first, my impression was I felt there was true, authentic, as you were saying, Terry, leadership ability. And it isn't a knock on any of the other coaches that we've had previously, but I did feel like he enjoyed leading and looked forward to the opportunity to lead people and lead a group of young men. And I think for me, that's where college athletics really starts. It originates there. Like greatness in college athletics is when you buy into whatever your coach is selling. You back them 100%. There's no doubts. You know you've been prepared well for these moments, right? Like, but you believe all that a little bit more when you know that your coach wants to and is doing everything to lead you there. And I felt that from the jump. So I think leadership was probably the number one thing that stood out to me from, as a high level kind of interpretation of the entire press conference.
Yeah, that just made me think of what is it that he said this to the team, and he said this in the press conference was how you do anything is how you do everything. I think that's word for word what it is. I didn't write it down, sorry. But he also felt like he enjoyed that press conference and would have stayed for like 4 hours answering questions if there hadn't been someone there to be like, all right, we're at time. And that's just, again, like I've got a lot of respect for Trent Bray and a lot of respect for the heights we reached under Smith, but we're never at a point where it was like our coach loves working with the media or dealing with the media. And I think that's going to be a breath of fresh air, at least right away. Just publicly, it's not going to feel like any kind of public appearance is a nuisance. Any kind of, talking publicly about players is, like, oh, what's this agenda? Like it's been hard to get information out of anyone in that leadership spot over the last, number of years. And I think that is going to play well with people, and people will enjoy covering this team and being around this team from the outside a little bit more than, let's say, basically last decade, because more so than the past two guys.
Matters.
Yeah, charisma does matter.
Charisma matters for a lot.
Right. And he's got it in droves.
Yeah.
And I mean, no one's ever hung a banner on charisma alone, but this is a great start. And any kind of new hire, I'll say any hire can succeed or fail for like a million different reasons. Like no one has a perfect resume. The man that this whole coaching carousel has revolved around, Lane Kiffin, been in the news a little bit. I don't know if you've noticed, hasn't won a major championship. And all of this, where you want to talk about JaMarcus Shephard not having head coaching experience, Lane Kiffin's got a lot of it, hasn't won a title, getting paid like he's won several. I'll give him those 2 Conference USA titles for Florida Atlantic. He did a hell of a job down there in Boca Raton. But no one's got a perfect resume, so you can poke holes in anything, and this isn't guaranteed to work out. It's not guaranteed to be a home run, but there is so much to like on paper and also in person from what we've seen now. And I think the next couple of months, I'm not expecting a boom on the first early signing day, which is tomorrow, as we record this on Tuesday, December 2nd.
Tough.
But hey, he might be a miracle worker.
It's who doesn't sign tomorrow, I think, is what will be more intriguing. Sure. Not for Oregon State, but in general, people that maybe were solid to Bama, or maybe that were potentially looking at Alabama, but Alabama didn't extend an offer, and so they went somewhere else, and now they're not so sure. I think that'll be telling, because I don't think we're going to be getting a bunch of signatures.
5-star signatures.
Yeah.
Well, I do think, though, it's sort of an interesting perspective, and sort of, we were balancing the Ed Orgeron versus up and coming FCS coach, and I think this is sort of the best of both worlds, where JaMarcus has made inroads with really high caliber athletes. And so he has those connections, but he's also
coaches,
and he's also going to be hungry to prove himself at this level being a head coach as opposed to being, FBS. But it's sort of the best of both worlds, I think. And it will be interesting, the transfer portal, because I think that there is the potential that he's made a lot of connections of players that maybe aren't getting the playing time that they thought that they might be getting. And if there's one thing that Oregon State offers, it is playing time.
It is playing time.
Right.
Well, I think
one thing you were saying, though, about the best of both worlds, there's 2 things he talked about in the press conference that made me feel really good about the hire. And not that I was ever worried about any of the concerns that I think a lot of people were expressing around, his inexperience and, whatever. But like the fact, I loved his comment about that people were saying like, you're not going to be a good fit. Like you've never been a head coach before. And he was like, well, I've never been a father before until I became a father. And people tell me that you're a really good father. So I think that I can figure it out kind of thing. And I think that like, yeah, you got to start somewhere. I think that lends a lot of credibility to his ability to devote himself to learn on the fly, to accept the areas that he isn't polished in or experienced in, lean on others. And then he talked about that separately is the best of both worlds again, is that he said that his phrase is Y-A-W or Y-A-W. And it's you are who you associate with. And he's made it a point to associate himself with like great fathers, great coaches, great football minds, so that he could absorb all of that and start to like learn from them. And even shouted out Jim Harbaugh in the process of that. So yeah, I think any concerns about his lack of experience or any concerns about, here we go again with another non-head coach candidate. Like look at our head coach candidates that we had as finalists. Like, you want some like FCS coach to come in and then all of a sudden like figure it out too. I mean, it is also apples and oranges. So I just liked the way he approaches learning and developing and becoming something that he hasn't been before.
I found that pretty interesting that people were so hung up on, Barnes hired another first-time head coach because he got burned so bad last time. And it's like, there was a lot of reasons why that hire didn't work out. But also, Smith was a first-time head coach when he was hired back in November 2017. And
how'd that work out?
Well, I'd say all things considered, great.
For us,
when you look at what
temporarily.
But I mean, everything's, temporary in the scheme of things. I think, hires can be great. They can be terrible, but just dismissing him because he fell on one side of, coaching candidates, like Gary Anderson was a head coach of another program and that went about as horrible as it could. And I mean, there are examples of both working out and not working out. So I don't think we need to be here to litigate that, but I would like to talk about the experience that he does have. And that is with being a pretty major part of a lot of high flying offenses, including maybe the most prolific offense that Wazoo has had in recent memory under Mike Leach in 2016. And if you go do some research on that, Mike Leach made it a point to get Shephard on that staff. Luke Falk threw for like 10 miles worth of yardage that season for the Cougs, which caught the eye of Jeff Brom at Purdue. And he hired JaMarcus away from Wazoo to be part of Purdue staff. And I like that there's kind of a mix where, I love the Alabama of it all. I love the UW of it all when they went to the national championship. But Purdue was god awful at that point in 2017. And then Benny, you and I got to see that offense in person in 2021, a year where they got to 9 wins for the first time in 18 years. And those offenses with Rondale Moore and David Bell were incredible. So he's been a part of a variety of programs in a variety of different situations. And from Western Kentucky to Wazoo to Purdue, UW to Alabama, it's worked. And so there's something to write home about. And we don't know if it's going to work out at Oregon State or not, but I'm excited for the first time in over 2 years about where we stand as a program and who's in the leadership spot.
Did you guys hear him talk about the explosive plays on offense and why?
Yes. How you have to have an explosive play every drive. And I don't think we've had a coach who's believed that maybe ever, save for maybe Erickson.
Nor have we had an explosive play on any drives this last season.
We haven't had it. I should have raised, if I was there, I would have raised my hand and be like, wait, so if you have 0 explosive plays on 10 drives, what does 0 times 10 equal for expected points? What do the analytics say on that if you just never have explosive plays, coach?
I wonder if Gunderson knows the answer to that 10 times 0 question.
Well, I really do like the fact that this is, take Gary Anderson out of it, JaMarcus Shephard is the first coach that we've had that has not had any ties to Oregon State since Erickson, right? And I think that that's good because I think that there is this idea.
But Erickson
and we've
did
talked about
technically
it here.
have a tie, but not
He had ties
as
to the
an employee.
Northwest.
But he was but he was interviewed, I believe, when Riley came the first time.
But
he didn't get
my
the job,
point
obviously.
being that there's not this like Oregon State culture that is sort of proliferated from coach to coach to coach, because we talked about it, like, we're going to do it the Beaver way. We're going to, build ourselves up by the bootstraps. And like, that is a good mantra, but I think Oregon State has put this spin on it that has sort of just trickled its way
like, we're down
into
bad
the program for a really long period of time. Yeah. And like, to bring somebody in that has come from programs that have literally competed for national championships, that's good. I mean, a culture change is what Oregon State needs right now. And I think drawing culture from programs that are top tier, high level programs, that's the right call. And I do understand, where fans are coming from of doubting his experience as a head coach, but like, okay, then the alternative to that would be bringing in a head coach from FCS. And like, if you bring them in, then they're recruiting a whole different pool of talent and performing at the FBS level. Like, there have been plenty of FCS coaches that have come and coached FBS football and not succeeded. So, like you guys said, it does go both ways. There's ones that have, and I feel like I've brought them up way too much recently, but Dan Lanning came in as a coordinator from the SEC, and he's had a fair amount of success. So like, you can point to it both ways. Like, there have been people that have been in JaMarcus Shephard's position that have come to be a head coach for the first time and found a lot of success.
Do you think if Alabama wins the national championship this year, Oregon State will do what Oregon did and tweet "Congrats, coach" with a picture of JaMarcus in Beaver gear with the national championship trophy behind him, like they did in Lanning's last year in Georgia? We got one. We finally got one.
There's a better chance of that happening. I guess it would be the opposite of Ole Miss doing that with LSU.
A little bit of a parting gift
with Ole Miss. But
what do you guys think is like the number one or two biggest culture changes you're expecting to see that you can like visually and like physically feel with Shephard?
I think the insistence on him to have a GM in place and also knowing who that individual is, Aaron Hodges, who's coming with him from Bama. Now, that's not something that was a position that didn't exist in any of college football previously, but it's also something that our coaching staff previously and administration did not feel prepared to add or take on. We saw all of the...
No, they didn't feel the need.
Or feel the need. We saw all of the messiness with, Kyle. I know he wasn't GM of just football or whatever, but JaMarcus, knowing from his area of expertise as a recruiter, to know that he needs a position, but also know who he wants to be in that position. That's going to feel different than anything we've had at Oregon State before. And it's something that is going to, I'll feel like we're not playing catch up in that area like we have been for the last few years.
Little aside, and not to drag it in any other direction with the optimism, but the fact that JaMarcus Shephard got a GM is very interesting. It's either that he has a lot of sway already, which by all accounts could be the case, or there's a lot of changes afoot with the athletic department, because a little birdie told us that the holdup with there being no ink to paper with the contract when the rumors first started hitting the internet that we were going with Shephard was his insistence on a GM, which is great.
And probably a certain amount of money for that GM.
Well, no, the pushback was, again, Barnes wanting to handle it in-house, as he had talked about doing in interviews after Kyle's resignation. And also there's a caveat that he was saying that they would have the responsibility shared in-house, and then they would also have AI.
God. Well, it's good that JaMarcus Shephard made that part of the deal, which he clearly did, because that was announced same day, right? And so that tells me that he sees the need for it, but also knows how he wants to utilize that position, which is good. One thing that stood out to me, and I think this is going to be the biggest thing, the biggest difference we will see on day one, is he's quoted as saying that he told the players he said players told him that the program, quote, needs a level of discipline. And he told them bluntly, it's about to be hard. I want to create adversity. So I think that's important, where he's not sugarcoating it. And he's essentially saying, like, if you want to continue playing here, it's going to be hard. And that is going to instill a level of hustle. It's going to instill a level of playing to the whistle and not giving up on plays, not giving up on the game when it seems like it's out of reach. And I feel like we saw that a lot this last year. And I don't think we'll see that. I mean, not with that attitude. Like, if he's being honest and real, that is a coach that you are going to play through the whistle for.
If you have the right guys.
I think he'll make sure that he does.
Well, of course. But I mean, like, then we'll see what sticks around and who excels under that new mantra with the new staff from the previous regime. Mm-hmm. We'll also probably see some, bumps in the road where we maybe fill positions through the portal or late guys signing that fill needs, but maybe don't fit correctly at the beginning. So not to say, like, be patient, give him time. Right. I think Shephard of all people wants to get back to winning football under his watch as fast as possible, but and probably holds himself more accountable to doing so than any fan or administrator can. But I think the reality also is, like, this is a very different brand of football and a football program. And I don't know how many people out there are ready to buy into that, whether they're already here or could end up at Oregon State. It might take a bit to, like, cultivate enough of his guys to fall in line with that.
Don't let this optimism fool you. I'm not expecting a tremendous year from a win-loss standpoint next season. I will not be freaking out if we're not, competing for a title right away. But, with the timelines in college football, improvement will be necessary in that area by year 2 for this to keep moving in the right direction.
Well, he also mentioned that he wants to make it a priority to recruit locally, which I don't think has really necessarily been an issue in the past. But it also, like, he has to,
not an issue, but
he has to build those pipelines. He has to build those relationships with the high school coaches. He has to build the relationships with the players, and that's going to take a lot of work and a lot of time. So we'll see how that plays out.
I do love that he's trying to focus locally. Me too. I don't think it's about talent. And he kind of alluded to this, but, like, it isn't about talent first and foremost. Like, it is a good thing to win the recruiting battle in your backyard, right? Yeah. Like, you should be aiming to do that. But when your backyard has, a couple fruit trees to pick from or something, like, it isn't going to provide a whole lot. So you're competing for limited resources with a lot of programs locally and nationwide. And I know that's a tough battle. The Northwest does do a good job with producing football talent, but we're not talking Southern California, Texas, or anywhere in the South.
In that same answer, though, he was sure to mention Southern California and the Bay, and making sure that. But
what I liked about what he said about he said a 5-hour. Like, within a 5-hour radius. And I think he was alluding to this, but this is how I took it before he even went down this path, was like, that is a culture lift. That is an engagement lift. That's where you get the guys who live in Salem and you bring them in. They're the best player in Salem. You bring them in. Maybe they're not your best player on your team, but now you get the best player, one of the best players in Southern California or Texas, and they're not going home for Thanksgiving, right? They go to Salem, right? And then you got the kid in Salem who's got family, friends, teachers, old coaches, old teammates that now are maybe a little more interested in watching the Beavs, coming for a game, filling out Reeser, watching on TV, right? There's like, there is a snowball effect, listening to podcast effect of when you generate local interest in a local product. And we are a local product. Like, we know that. So it can expand if you expand your footprint, but you don't really just expand your footprint. You can through marketing and other creative ways, but you know, we're still waiting on seeing the university do that a little bit better. But if you can control it, which is how you recruit, then control it and expand your footprint yourself. And I think that that's what he was alluding to in a way about the importance of it, but also the community aspect of, you know, players having something local that felt like family or actual family that's local. So yeah, I liked that. I liked that emphasis, but I also love that he caveated it with, you know, well, also, you know, Southern California and Texas and wherever else he wants to recruit.
I found that interesting too, that he made a point to mention that he and his wife want to start this regular thing of gatherings with the other head coaches at Oregon State and build community that way. And I'm sure things like that have happened in the past, and this wasn't like the first person to have this idea, but I haven't seen that, or like I've seen any evidence of that, you know, taking place at OSU. And so that, you know, coaches are getting to know each other, sharing experiences, probably sharing certain frustrations, you know, once you get to know each other a little bit better. But just whether that has been in place before or not, just that emphasis of building community is top of mind. I know coaches say a lot of stuff like this to try and win over the public when they start a new job, but that's not a line that I've just heard brought up organically by coaches in their, you know, first statement when accepting a job. So, you know, for him to be like, him and Canham going to be, you know, chopping it up, or him and Coach Berg talking, that's going to be, you know, like, I'm sure that will lead to, you know, some great Instagram reels that they can use for social media marketing. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting and definitely like organic in the way that he said it, and clearly had been like thoughtful about it, and that he and his wife have apparently already started working on it. So I think that'd be.
Do you think he said that because? Do you think I said it? But do you think that this became an idea because if we're not doing that already, as you were alluding to, could be the case? Like that's a detriment, and he's seeing it be beneficial.
Sure.
Like, and not just to himself as a football coach or those who were head football coaches above him, but maybe the university in general, right? Like it stems from somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
I know he's very, very much community oriented and wants to align not just with the athletic director and the president, but like everybody that's a stakeholder within the university's athletics programs. So it could just be altruistic from that front, but like there must be something that he has seen or something that he thinks can be gained and isn't there currently from doing that.
Yeah. I think coaches of all sports can learn a lot from each other. So I'm sure that's probably the basis of it. But if he's seen that type of, you know, community action bear fruit and in action at either Bama or Washington or any of these other places he's been, then I'm sure that's an influence.
I also think that part of it might be, and probably is, just showing the fans an overall investment into the athletic department as a whole. Just because, like, Bill Oram had a column today that was titled something to the effect of like, is JaMarcus Shephard a flight risk at Oregon State? Meaning, like, if JaMarcus Shephard has a great couple years, is he going to leave? And I think ingratiating himself into the athletic department in a way like this sort of lets fans know, like, I'm part of this. I'm in it for maybe not the long haul, but like I'm part of this, which I think is a good thing as well. Let me ask you guys this. What would be the high level expectation? So like what do you think would be the highest realistic expectations that we should have for next year, including like what the recruiting front looks like and what next year would look like as a win for you guys?
I know I've been talking a big game. A 6-6 season would be a win for me in wins and losses. I think recruiting juice will come earlier and maybe a little bit higher, and might lead to more frustration if it doesn't, since it won't translate to wins right away. But I wouldn't be surprised if we had a higher ranked recruiting class than we've had. I haven't gone back and like looked at where we fell in like the last, 3 to 5 years. But if we're at 500 fighting for a winning record in a bowl next season, I'll be happy.
Yeah. I mean, high level 500 football next season would be fine. I'd be happy with it. But more so, I think we should win the games that we're supposed to win, lose the games we're supposed to lose, and, maybe throw in there one or two that we really should have lost, but we played extremely well and hard all game long and pulled it out. Like one or two of those would be fine with me. So like, it isn't like win the 6 that you're supposed to win, lose the 6 you're supposed to lose. But it's like, as long as we are mostly winning the games we're supposed to win and not shooting ourselves in the foot, as long as we're losing the games that we're predicted to lose or forecasted to lose, but giving it a ton of effort, and it's clear as from the viewer perspective that no one has given up.
Yeah.
And then, maybe one or two of those ends up surprising people,
Right,
including us.
I think that last bit you mentioned is really important. Like the eye test is going to matter, because I think the first time I was ever really, really concerned was that Air Force game towards the end of 2024, where I don't accuse Bray of outright just like quitting, but I'm like, that is not an effort I've seen this team put on the field, and it approach any reasonable era deemed acceptable. And then that happened again in his last game against Wake Forest this year. Anything like that won't be acceptable. But even if it's not bowl eligibility 500, if the effort is there and there's competitive football, competent football, that's going to be really important too. That you can go 4-8 in a lot of different ways, and at least in a way that respects the game and respects the audience, the fans, I think will matter a lot. But I mean,
looking back, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you asked the question, Benny, so I just wanted to see if he had an answer to this question as well.
I think fighting for being in the running for a Pac-12 championship in late October would be a realistic, not probability, but it is realistic, I think. I think it would be a pipe dream to say that we could win the Pac-12 next year, but I think being in that sort of upper 3 or 4 heading into the end of October and just like garnering a little bit of excitement and getting Reeser filled again and getting the energy back. Like, I don't think that, we're going to be fighting for a Pac-12 championship at the end of November or anything, but if he can start getting that energy back into Reeser, I think that's a realistic possibility. And I do think that with Oregon State playing in a diminished Pac-12 now, that becomes, or a rebound season and sort of a reversal of the bad trend that we've been seeing, is a much more realistic possibility than what it would have been in the old Pac-12. So do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. I don't think we're going to have a winning season next year, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities.
Outside of talent and figuring things out on the field, what are your biggest concerns given the things discussed in the press conference that maybe felt naive?
I mean, I still don't think we have a play caller on the staff yet, right? Or it's someone with that experience. He's been around it a lot. I would hope maybe on the defensive side of the ball, we get a top DC who has called defensive plays at least one previous stop. That's just something that's going to have to be figured out, and we might need to go into it blindly a little bit and just hope it works out. But there'll be play calling and in-game adjustment stuff that we don't really have a specific body of work linked to Shephard that we
but
can
go
point
beyond
to.
the field. Beyond the field. Right now, we don't really have a collective. Collectives aren't as necessary. It's rev share. I get that. But, like, what do you think could be the biggest blockers for Shephard to having a fast turnaround off the field, not recruits, not wins and losses because of, figuring things out or just trying to get the talent in the door. But like, what are his biggest blockers in your eyes?
I mean, I hope the athletic department is fully bought in and behind him and going to give him all the resources that he needs. I know a lot of people listening to this are hoping for some big sweeping changes at the leadership level that I don't think are going to happen. So there's not a lot we can say to, quiet those beliefs at all. But I mean, it's from what it sounds like, a pretty big financial investment is being made into him and his staff. So if that goes away or turns out not to be the case, then that's a pretty big mountain to climb. Mm-hmm. But as of right now, I mean, giving this administration the benefit of the doubt has been costly at times. So you're still banking on that, but I'm not overly concerned about that at this moment. Like, I know part of the fan base was like, it doesn't matter who we hire if Scott Barnes is still here. And while I get where that passion is coming from, I'm not quite like, I think there are a lot of athletic directors out there who really successful head coaches aren't the biggest fans of. So I think you can have your cake and eat it too in this sort of situation. But I don't know, Benny, it sounds like you've got.
I think that the fans could be his biggest blocker, specifically fan engagement, for two reasons. Like, one, and this is the lesser of the two, but he's come from programs that have not had problems filling the seats. And so I don't know if that would have any sort of presence on like the psyche.
Purdue and Wazoo can look bleak at times.
Wazoo, I don't think was when he was there.
Probably not that year, no.
Purdue was pretty filled when we were there. But I think the bigger issue would be fan engagement in the sense of people have stopped giving to Oregon State's athletic department. And I think there's been a loss of interest.
Well, hold on. Our Beaver Nation announced it was like their most money they've ever received from fans this year.
Since Shephard took the helm?
No, like in 2025.
No, this football season. Yeah.
But could that be because the people sort of boycotted the collective and started giving directly instead?
I mean, yeah, but that's going to be the route forward.
What I'm saying is like the total pile of cash that's being donated either to the collective or the university. If the university is saying, well, this is the most donations that we've gotten for athletics, like is that because
but the net loss of the collective is it kind of almost cancels it out, what you're saying?
Exactly.
Because,
there's a way to sort of manipulate the messaging there.
And what I think you're getting at too, Betty, too, is there's a level of fan engagement that you can't reach without wins.
Yeah.
And we were looking at a pretty empty Reeser at most games this year. Shout outs to the students. They did their part. The rest of us did not. And I don't blame any of us who,
hey, I was at Sam Houston.
You were at Sam Houston. And you should be reimbursed for the money that it took to get you there and in the door for the performance that you were given as a spectator for that game.
Yeah,
that's
and
how
my
bad
kids
it was.
like ate hot chocolate and hot brownies.
That might have been the most demoralizing game,
right,
for Oregon State in history.
To get back to a sold out Reeser, it's not just hype videos. It's not just saying the right things. It's not just having the juice with the recruits. It's winning football games.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of fans too would say, I'm not crazy. I know it might take a while, but I live in Vancouver, Washington. It's a pain in the ass to get there and get back. There are still less than 1,000 hotel rooms in the entire city of Corvallis. If you want to stay overnight for a game, it's hard. We still have no control over kick times, and they're probably going to put us in the late spot a lot to make other people rich who have never been to Corvallis before. And those people aren't going to come until it's a winning team again. And so that will feel like a slog to get there, because you need the passage of time. You can't just go out there and win 9 games right now, and you're going to need to actually put those wins on the board. So, yeah. I'm
what
not
about like
totally
short-term
concerned.
wins like NIL?
That'll be great. That'll be fun. But that's not going to get the fan engagement to the level that I think Benny was speaking to.
I think that will generate excitement, but it won't fill seats.
Prior to this hire, it was at rock bottom, and any coaching hire will get you like some positive momentum a little bit. And I think with this type of hire and the type of man JaMarcus Shephard is, that gets up a lot. I don't know if you go with either Vegan or Polasek or whoever the best FCS names were. I don't think they generate more excitement than what we've seen. No. Even if they would turn out to be better coaches, Gruden would feel like a joke
immediately.
And I'm glad that those talks didn't really advance more. But yeah, we'll have to see what these short-term wins do, but it's not something that you can fix with, a good, NIL funding period or one recruiting cycle or anything like that.
I mean, I think NIL though does mirror fan interest and engagement in some capacity. And actually, I mean, not one-to-one, but there's definitely a correlation of NIL and fan investment, period. I mean, they go hand in hand. The thing that concerns me the most from today, and it's not Shephard, though Shephard wasn't very well equipped to discuss it, and I get it, it's fresh and new, so I don't blame him. But everything was discussed with a lot of passion, confidence, and just like sureness around how and why and in what ways he knows he's equipped or can equip himself to make sure the team and program are in the spot he wants them to be. The only topic that was very, very vague and brushed off was NIL. And he was asked about NIL. And he was asked about it, and he said, no, I'm aware of it. And even Barnes said something about like, he knows where, our needs are and what our situation is and whatever, but like still talked about it as a good fit. And they said something about how I think we're in a great spot with NIL, but it then didn't elaborate. I am still worried about that, not because I think NIL is a collective is important for Oregon State yet, as important as it could be for schools that exceeding the $20.5 million rev share cap with their commitments to student athletes. But again, it mirrors fan engagement. And I know it's like a big mess right now, but I would have liked to have heard even Barnes say something like, we're budgeting, we're forecasting whatever figure NIL pool. We're lining up this much for retention. We're lining up this much to make sure that he's ready. We've got commitments, or doesn't have to go into too many specifics, but like give me some reassurances that resource, which is a very important resource for coaches in this day and age, especially new coaches to programs, to build their programs quickly when their own leashes are extremely short and much shorter than they've ever been. I wanted more around that, not from Shephard, but I wanted more from Barnes and the department to either have equipped him with, here's what we're going to do, here are our promises, and also just Barnes, maybe even off the cuff, saying, well, he's going to be in a great spot. We're rebuilding our collective. We're putting in the hands of Beavers again. We're already, re-engaging donors that were members. We're engaging donors who have shifted their focus to OBN, but keeping this as a branch of our rev share NIL, focus that is the fan engagement arm, right? Like you donate money to OBN, you feel good. You get a tax break. Okay. People do that. And I've done it. And it's not, but it's not a bad thing by any means. But the thing with collectives is you get something in return. So now you get either a little bit more from those people who you gave to OBN because they want to be involved there too, or you get the people who didn't consider about giving to OBN because they wanted something in return, which makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. When they spend their money on something, they want something in return, not just the hope that your athletes will be taken care of or that you'll have enough money to compete. You still want something in return, right? Like you want drawings, autographs, appearances, some sort of special acknowledgement. And they're not going to do that with rev share, but they can do that with collectives. And I still think that even with Oregon State is a valuable arm for us when it comes to expanding reach to get fans engaged and involved and not just, waiting for the big donors to donate to OBN and get the tax breaks.
Well, that's what I'm worried about is I don't think you're going to have that secret donor giving you 1.5 million and saying, go out and get my guy. Like, I don't think that is happening.
Did anyone send the link to Jensen from today's press conference?
Tell him it's all NVIDIA AI generated.
Get
whole thing.
Get JaMarcus in a room with Jensen.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that would guarantee anything, but do it because no one else has, cracked that cookie yet. So start building that relationship.
Shep's a guy who seems like he could if he was in a room. I think that the only reason why Jensen would leave the room was because he was running through a brick wall for Shep to prove his loyalty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, maybe it's the pessimist in me that has just lived through the last 2 seasons of Oregon State football, but
nearly 4 decades of Oregon State football.
Yeah, there is man, I hesitate to even say it, but like when you have someone that is trying to sell you on themselves and there's a level of, and I don't think JaMarcus Shephard was doing this, but like a level of overcompensation and trying to oversell, it can tend to point to like them being a little unsure of sort of imposter syndrome, which I don't think that's happening, but it is also a possibility. We saw that with a totally different context, but Malik Murphy. Remember when we were like, oh my God, listen to the way he talks. He's going to totally lead this team. And then he ended up being what to me clearly looked like a distraction on the team.
Sure.
So
I will offer that Aaron Hodges, who is the reported GM coming with him, was not mentioned by name, and neither was Dolan or anyone else linked. And I don't know if pen to paper for those contracts has been signed. So I do think at a time like this, there's one, he still hasn't even officially dismissed coaches who aren't going to be part of the staff next year. I mean, now he probably has, but I do think there is a level of things that, you can't discuss. And hopefully we get a little more clarity once, Hodges is officially in Corvallis and boots on the ground and has an office and a title and Oregon State email address and is publicly an employee of Oregon State football. I think more of those things can come to light. And I think you mentioned this at the Jump, JP. That's not really something that he may have been empowered to discuss at a introductory press conference. But you had big blockers. I know this is tied to on the field, but it's kind of always been a thing, even pre-NIL era, is can Oregon State spend with the best of them or close to a level that keeps it competitive? And we've had glimpses of getting close. So I think it'll really hinge on the plans that this new GM can develop in concert with JaMarcus and full buy-in and support from the administration. And doesn't necessarily have to be Jensen Huang, but Jensen's not the only rich beav out there, guys. And you're listening to 3 of them, but getting a bunch of beavs who haven't opened up the checkbook in a long time, trying to make those relationships. And he's starting that with former players. I'm not asking them to come in and save it with the hard-earned money they got from playing in the pros after their Oregon State careers.
But their presence is currency.
Is a win.
Yeah,
exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that endorsement is currency.
You have to give players a reason to want to come to Corvallis, and winning right away is not one of them, but playing time is, and being around people who have been incredibly successful is also a reason to come to Corvallis. So getting those ex-players, Terry, I don't know if you had mentioned this on the pod, but certainly offline, of TJ Hushmanzada saying that, he's tried getting back involved with Oregon State and they didn't want him. So if you have TJ Hushmanzada, Steven Jackson, Chad Ochocinco, don't think that's going to happen, but it would be sweet. If you have those guys around, that makes a huge difference.
He's talked to Steven Jackson on the phone already. And apparently, obviously, Brandon Cook's on the search committee. They talked a lot, and it sounds like, I don't think I said this on the pod, that JaMarcus would love to hire a former Oregon State wide receiver to work with the receivers. And Cook said he was very interested. I don't know if this is going to be Cookie's last season, but if Cooks has a standing invite to be a coach on the coaching staff at Oregon State once his playing days are over, I love that. And they talked a lot. He mentioned that James and Quiz had called him, or that they had spoke on the phone. So it sounds like in a very short amount of time, which took place over a holiday weekend as well, that a lot of conversations and foundational relationship building has been taking place.
And
I mean, imagine the Rogers brothers on campus when you've got one of your best Texas recruits coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
They just happen to be there, right? Yeah. Like you could go down the list and just think about all the greats. I did find that interesting that he pointed that out, because I think we all agree that that's been a missing piece, not just for Oregon State football, but Oregon State athletics.
Yeah,
is.
And one team very much in particular.
Yes.
I'll give you one guess.
Who is in very much need of spark of some sort.
And that's kind of where I was like, he did jump to that early in the press conference.
Yeah.
About get your butts back. And
yeah, that was one of the first things.
And that to me, like, again, huge need, checks a box that I was hoping somebody would come in and say and do. But did he say it? Because like we're not only have we not done it well, but we also kind of dug ourselves a deeper hole with the whole recency about Gary Payton with that guy, I forgot his name, and Steve Johnson, the great Steve Johnson.
Yeah, for sure, man. But like with Oregon State, you don't have a ton of resources, and you have even less resources when you're not playing well. And so you have to utilize everything that you have. And JaMarcus Shephard bringing that up does give me faith that he understands the position that Oregon State's in, right? Like drawing from your strengths, like using the resources that you have. So him knowing that and him being able to put those pieces together in a very short amount of time, I do think it speaks volumes for how quickly he can potentially adapt.
Yeah. I mean, also, whatever happened to Steven Jackson, I know that damnation doesn't really exist now, but like what happened to Steven Jackson, remember when he partnered with them and did his clothing line? And obviously Steven's got his son still at Oregon State. Like those, again, are opportunities for Oregon State to tap into our alumni, our famous and successful and widely beloved alumni base athletically, to build great relationships that are off the field for athletes and getting them involved in businesses, getting them involved with people of high notoriety like a Brandon Cooks or a TJ Hushmanzado or Chad Ochocinco or Steven Jackson, who has his own clothing line, right? Like there's opportunities there. And like that one was exciting when it got launched, and then there was nothing.
No.
Yeah.
Just crickets. I mean, obviously, a lot of it hinged on Damian Martinez, who was, I think, only athlete signed with it. But, like, that stuff can't just be like, we did it, we're done. It has to be, like, built over and over. You have to cultivate that relationship. You have to make everyone feel welcome, feel a part of the build, that you're all in it together. And so I really love that he pointed that out right away. And, again, it's not just about, can they use their football minds? All of them except for Cooks are essentially not playing football anymore.
Yeah.
So what value can they bring as humans? And it could be what they're doing after football. It could be what they like loved the most about Oregon State and being in Corvallis that they can express and share and relate to for somebody from the same region or background or something, right? Like, everyone's got something to give, and then putting that out there right away is huge. And I hope that the alumni base answers that call. I mean, I saw Tim Ewis already said, like, when he's back in town, when Shepherd's back in town, he wants to meet up or touch base with them on things. So keep doing that. Keep reaching out. They don't have to be local. Fly them in. invite them give them some reason to feel like they should be there.
Yeah.
And this was a good starting point.
You know, one thing that I think does work and would be an interesting angle is what Dennis Erickson did with Oregon State. I've seen other coaches do it too, but you go down. I mean, Dennis Erickson went down into Miami and pulled Chad Johnson. I think TJ Hushmanzada also came.
Hoosh was a Riley recruit, but
Hoosh was a Riley recruit.
Chad was Erickson.
Chad was but he went down to Miami and grabbed all these guys that had played together, not necessarily together on the same team, but like played in the same area, knew each other. And it was essentially just like, we're getting together a group of guys who have been passed on by other teams for whatever reason, whether it's academics or personnel issues or whatever. And we're going to get you guys all together on the same team. And
discipline you.
Yeah.
Maybe not Erickson.
I don't know if Erickson, yeah.
But
Shephard preached discipline.
I mean, Ocho's mentioned this on Twitter several times where people are like, why'd you go to Oregon State? And he'll just tweet like a picture of Dennis Erickson. Right. So like if you go down and you can
tell me he only went to class one time or something.
Yeah. But I think like thinking outside the box like that, like, you know, Dennis Erickson turned Oregon State into somewhat of like a last chance U. And so going in with that mindset, and if Shephard holds true to his word of being somebody who's going to make it hard, you know, so sometimes that's what these players are looking for, is like wanting some like direction and discipline and structure. And like, if Shephard can offer that, that's great. And I think that's an angle, and it works so well for Oregon State under Erickson that, you know, that is an angle to go towards in order to rebuild really quick.
Is Shephard, is he the most high energy coach that we've had since Erickson?
He's more high energy than Erickson.
He's more high energy than Erickson. Yeah. I'm trying
I mean, Erickson was animated enough. It felt like he didn't have to just put on this like boring front on, you know, on TV in a way, but
yeah,
I feel like we've just had coaches.
Well, Anderson was energetic. It wasn't really ever in a positive manner or have any kind of a positive influence.
It had zero depth.
He used the word juice a lot.
I think that Shephard
players make plays, players win games. That was his.
But no, players don't talk to the media, especially when I'm mad.
I think our highest energy coach previous to Shephard was Mike Riley.
Yeah, I think so too.
Oh, but
Jiminy G. Williker is JP.
Yeah, yeah, not the same kind of energy.
Yeah. It's not the same kind of energy. Riley's more energetic than he gets credit for. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, I think he is the most high energy coach of our lifetime.
By
go further. I mean, I need more footage of the DeAndros days. But yeah. So that's something that's gonna be different. That's gonna be a welcome change.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I said, I really hope we see a huge culture shift with the program. That is what I'm hoping for in year one.
We need to make noise. We need to be heard. We need to be seen.
Yep.
And I think a high energy coach that is exuding that energy and explosiveness and all the other terms he talked about, like dominance, like when you exude that, your players feel it. They buy into it. They reflect it on the field. People watching see it. Like there's plenty of residual, just positives that can come from a high energy coach like that. Not just high energy to be a phony. Like you could tell it was real. It was deep.
Yeah.
Everything. When he got a high energy is when I think he was his most real.
Right.
And let himself loose a little bit from the script.
Yeah. And I think like JaMarcus Shephard's job in the next 12 months is to plant the seed in, high 3-star athletes' ears that Oregon State could be an option. Right. Like that's what his job is. Because right now, I don't think many recruits are looking at Oregon State as a top choice. It might be if they're
shame on them.
Right. But like in all honesty, like why would you want to play in a stadium that is 25% full, for a team that, quits in half the game. I mean, Terry, you mentioned the Wake Forest game. The Tulsa game was worse. The team just completely quit. So like, there's so many reasons to not want to be involved in the football program. One thing that players can gravitate towards is a high energy coach that makes people at least look at Oregon State. And I think that's what his job is these next 12 months is to just plant that seed in some of these recruits' heads of like, Oregon State could be an option. Maybe I do want to play for him. Maybe I do want to play down in Corvallis, right? Like that's what I think his job is. And that high energy can absolutely do that.
Yeah. And if he wants to bring that high energy to the Belligerent Beavs podcast, coach, open invite.
Anytime.
We'll
nice, do an emergency pod.
There's like a few recent episodes that people pointed to suggest we're not nice. That was out of necessity. We're nice.
Oh, really?
We're
people are saying that we're not nice.
I'm saying we haven't been nice.
I am not nice. Do not label me as such.
You're one of the nicest people I know. Stop it.
Never. No.
We'll be nice to Coach Shephard for sure.
I will.
Man, all right. This is an exciting day. I say it's a great day to be a Beaver, and it's one thing to win a press conference. It's another thing to win games, but there's a lot of time to pass between this press conference and the first game. But
if I could give today a single word that would actually a single 2 words that would represent
a single two words.
So, like Charles Barkley, I'm going to give you 2 words.
A pair of words
would be
double words.
ChopEm, because you can't spell ChopEm without hope, and I think there's a lot of hope.
I feel
in Beaver Nation today. I think that's really good.
Restore the hope.
Can I just strip the hope for 1 second, because we have to talk about the phone. We have to talk about the logistics.
My God. I thought there might be a chance I'll get to sleep before midnight tonight.
No, this will be fast.
Okay, we can.
But for the listeners who didn't see it or weren't watching, this isn't going to end up in the newspapers.
No. It's up on all over Twitter,
maybe the forums. But in the middle,
it's in the lodge. It's on the Beaver Blitz forums.
It's in the lodge.
It's in the lodge, baby.
But the thing that's trending right now is that in the middle of late in kind of midway through the Q&A with Scott Barnes and Coach Shephard, there's a moment where Coach Shephard is answering a question, and of course he's very well prepared and very authentic and going deep into his answer. And in the middle of it, you can see Scott Barnes peer, kind of nodding, and his eyes are squinted, and he peers down at his phone, and he looks over at Shephard and kind of nods like, I was listening, like you do in class. Like, oh, yeah. And then grabs his phone, looks at Shephard again, nods again, and then just starts texting away.
Who do you think
in
it was?
The middle?
I
think it was his lawyer. I think it was his attorney.
I think he was door dashing local boys.
No, texting the delivery driver. Like, yeah, we're really in Valley Football Center. You have to bring it in here into the conference room.
It was a little bit. It was a little bit of scrolling. There was some taps and a scroll, a tap and a scroll.
He held it up behind the little sign and started texting. I'm doing.
I know he wasn't on DoorDash. I just want that to be what he was doing.
Oh,
I think it was
the
Brent
reason
Blaylock.
why I ask it.
And I think he was saying, Scott, I'm so sorry. Can we please just talk?
He's probably saying, what are alumni? He's talking about alumni. I don't understand.
He was Googling the definition of alumni. He was Googling. He was looking up Gary Payton's stats on Basketball Reference.
Yeah.
This guy was really good.
But I did find it
I
very
remember him for more than 15 years.
Murphy doubled down on tripled down, quadrupled down. That's for you, Beaver swag. You do whatever is after quadruple down. Tupled down.
Pentaca down.
Pentaca down.
That's impossible.
It's a word like a thumbnail.
Like
you
a
just don't know
pentagon.
Yeah.
5-sided down.
But Murphy definitely realigned with Scott Barnes.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
Scott Barnes gave a very big vote of confidence
in himself.
Even if he didn't look as enthusiastic as he did with Trent Bray.
Oh, he's more tired than he was 2 years ago.
I think he's also this wasn't his pick. This was the committee's pick. Anyways,
glad he set up a committee.
We can leave that as an aside. But JaMarcus Shephard also was very much adamant about aligning, linking arms, going to battle with Scott Barnes.
He kind of had to.
And I found, but he didn't have to go as far as he did.
True.
And I don't think it was compensation. I think he really, truly feels that way. But all of this felt a little bit like split or something. I don't know. The fact that like he was sitting there like, you know,
texting Brent. No one's asking me any questions, Brent. No one's talking to me, man.
So that whole situation could be also interesting because we did mention it on the podcast before. Maybe it was on social media, but I think that JaMarcus Shephard is a guy that can win over any athletic director. But many times a change at athletic director, which may or may not happen at Oregon State, but a change at athletic director essentially spells the end for a non-established head coach.
It does.
So linking to him makes sense because odds are if he doesn't impress a new athletic director, he's probably out, whether that's in person or on the field and the performance. But also, if you link to the athletic director that's about to potentially go to trial for a lawsuit, I'm curious what the motivation was. Like, I really am, because Scott Barnes didn't seem that interested when he was texting away. Yet JaMarcus Shephard was very authentic with saying no, like and took the lead to say we're together, we are aligned, we are going to battle together. Like,
well, and I think
something to watch.
Maybe just my sort of last thoughts on it, and it probably goes without saying, but like when you have a guy that is that enthusiastic about being part of the program and being linked to you and wanting to change the trajectory of the program, and you're on your phone, like there's no other way to say it. It's just rude behavior, you know?
It was weird. It was definitely rude. Yeah. But I will say maybe this was Shephard's a leader.
Yeah.
He's a guy who galvanizes people clearly. He's got the aura to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe this is his way of, look at you guys on your phones. I can see your eyeballs looking down at your phones. You are no better than Scott Barnes.
You're not JaMarcus Shephard.
I'm itching my arm.
I'm JaMarcus Shephard. I'm Chapia Shephard.
Chapia Shephard.
But
Jeopard Shephard.
Maybe that's his Jeopard Shephard. But maybe that's his way of lighting a fire under Barnes. Like, sure, I'm going to do this with or without you. So if you want to, grab onto my coattails, I'm extending that olive branch now to say that we're aligned. And then therefore, also, everything that you decide from this point onward better align with what I want.
Right.
I thought it was a masterclass.
And better help this football team.
Masterclass of dominance assertion. I mean, I think that he maybe just essentially took over the athletic director role when it comes to anything football.
Do you think Scott Barnes gave him some sort of warning, like, don't piss the fan base off because they can be so mean if you do?
It'd be really pathetic if he did that. Shepherd's coach in the SEC. He's aware of the mental nature of football fans.
I think
Barnes he'd probably laugh like Benny at Barnes.
Right. He's coached. Yeah. He just coached a game at Auburn. Like, he knows. So
the Iron Bowl.
We should close with Coach Shephard did say, I wanted to be at Oregon State. It wasn't, here I am, Gary Anderson. It wasn't, this makes too much sense. I'm home, Jonathan Smith. It wasn't, I didn't want to abandon these guys.
I guess I'll do it.
I wanted to be at Oregon State. Yeah. And I think that
he made Glenn Sugiyama and DHR consider him. Like, he said he was emphatic about making sure he was part of the search. He sees the opportunity.
Well, we wanted him to be here. I'm really excited for the trajectory of the program.
I am too. Very, very excited to see what the offseason has in store. It's kind of fun when you're.
I'm waiting for the 4 and 5 stars from Alabama to start.
It's
start
never
training.
better
We
than it
have
is
fun
right
again?
now. It's never better than it is right in the middle of the beginning of a new coaching hire.
Hell yeah.
It's so perfect. And they never lost again. Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go,
and you
Beavies.
are who you associate with, and I associate with JaMarcus Shephard.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I am JaMarcus Shephard.
I am
JaMarcus
JaMarcus Shephard. JaMarcus Spartacus Shephard. This was a really fun episode of
Hell yeah.
Ooh, there you go.
the Belligerent Beavs podcast. The JaMarcus Shephard era off to a flying, fighting start, and can't wait to see what we have in store. What did y'all think of the press conference, Beaver fans? Let us know on social media at Belligerent Beavs on Twitter, at Belligerent Beavs everywhere else. Hit the comments on YouTube where we're all three of us are for sure definitely reading all of them. BelligerentBeavs.com, BelligerentBeavs.com/merch. The I'm JaMarcus Shephard shirts are coming soon. And give us some 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Apple, Spotify, the I'm JaMarcus Shephard app. I am JaMarcusShephard.com. I'm JaMarcusShephard.com/merch. It really helps us grow the show a lot. And please share the show with a friend. Now that we're back to speaking positively, at least for one episode, maybe just for one episode, we'll see what happens next week in the always exciting world of being a goddamn Beaver fan. You have been excellent Beaver fan. I have been Terry Horseman at Terry Horseman on Twitter and at Terrence Horstman on Instagram.com. Joined as I always am by my best fucking friends, Benjamin
Sounds
Lawrence
so much
Sebastian
better.
Wehage, aka Benny with the good quaff, aka Benny Bolgan, but not this year, but maybe next year, but definitely not this year, aka
maybe next
Benny
year.
Blastoff, aka Benny Burner, aka Benny Bedlam, because he's fucking crazy, folks, and at Benny L 1986 across social channels. And the man, the myth, the legend on the ones and twos, keeping the ship steered in the right direction, JP Bertram at the Trill J on Twitter. It's at the _J _Trio Shepherd Shepherd JaMarcus I am Shepherd, because he's too Trill to be real, and not on Instagram, just at JP Bertram. And as Benny said it earlier, no matter what you do, no matter what they say, no matter what they take away, no matter who or what they were texting in the middle of a goddamn press conference, they still cannot spell ChopEm without hope. So chop 'em
Chop 'em.
Chop 'em.
and just chill to the next episode.
Get off your phone, Scott.